Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. I want to get to a story from Major League Baseball that drew headlines yesterday. That's because Commissioner Rob Manfred removed Pete Rose, shoeless Joe Jackson, and other deceased players from Major League Baseball's permanently ineligible list. As a result, they're now eligible for election into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. The players were issued lifetime bans for betting on the sport. Manfred's decision ends the ban that Rose accepted from then-Commissioner Bart Giamatti in August of 1989. The ban followed an investigation that determined Pete Rose bet on games while managing the Cincinnati Reds, not playing, managing. Shoeless Joe Jackson and 7 other White Sox players were banned from baseball in 1921 for fixing the 1919 World Series. Here's a portion of the statement from the commissioner, Mr. Manfred himself, yesterday. Quote, "In my view, once an individual has passed away, the purposes of Rule 21, permanent ineligibility, have been served. Obviously, a person no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game. Moreover, it is hard to conceive of a penalty that has more deterrent effect than one that lasts a lifetime with no reprieve," end quote. Before I get into my thoughts, I want to share with you what my buddy, Christopher Mad Dog Russo, you know, with his own channel, Mad Dog Radio, that Christopher Mad Dog Russo. I want to show you what he had to say this very morning on First Take on ESPN earlier today. I want you to listen to what he had to say. It's a little long, but it's worth it. Take a listen.
How was Pete not in the Hall of Fame long before this day anyway? Baseball's in bed with every gambling establishment you can shake a stick at. FanDuel, DraftKings, they make a fortune with this betting scenario. And when they needed Rose after all these years when he was ineligible for the MasterCard top 50 player thing at the World Series in '99, they wheeled Pete out. When he needed Rose at the All-Star game, when they celebrated each team's 4 best players and Rose was voted by Cincinnati, boom, they wheeled Rose out. So for promotional purposes, when they needed Rose to be sort of big for baseball and to sell some tickets, they couldn't wait to allow him to be on the field to be part of that. When Rose's kid made his major league debut in Cincinnati, did you know that baseball would not let Rose go on the field? He had to buy a ticket. This is his freaking kid. And you make him buy a ticket after all the money he put in your pocket year after year after year.
That's foul.
And then all of a sudden now, and I love Manfred, I hate to do this, but you got to do it. All of a sudden now, Rob decides, 5 months after he drops dead, Rob decides now, well, you know what? Now he's eligible for the Hall of Fame. Well, and then since he's no longer alive, it's lifetime, not permanent. Well, hold on, Rob. You can't say that. Because Joe Jackson died in 1951, he's been ineligible. He's an automatic Hall of Famer, lifetime 354 hitter, and you didn't make him eligible until Rose scenario was. So if this is about lifetime, why wasn't Jackson made eligible when you became the commissioner in 2015? I mean, listen, you couldn't give Pete Rose a day in 2023 when he was 80 years old to let him have a day in Cooperstown, New York. And if you go to the Hall of Fame, you know what you see in the Hall of Fame? It's a Pete Rose cathedral. There's posters, there's film, there's uniforms, cleats and bats. It's all about Pete Rose. So let me get this. And they charge you $20 to get in. So if you want to see Pete in the Hall of Fame, here's the bat that he used to hit Brick Cobb's hit record. But by golly, we ain't giving him any day in the Hall of Fame. And this is a sport that has been with the gambling community. And listen, good for them. But you can't have it both ways. Be morally high ground if you're so against gambling. So listen, and the other thing is, from a legacy standpoint, what now his legacy changes because he's dead? So in other words, then, when he's alive, we can't put him because it tarnishes the sport. But now that he's dead 5 months later, who cares about legacy? We can put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, listen, what baseball did here, to me, overall with Rose, and Rose is no hero. We understand he should have been suspended for 30-something years, but enough already. As Pete used to say, Al Capone got better treatment than Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. They are totally out of line, and I'm really surprised that I think Manfred wanted this off his plate. I think he started getting criticized for how baseball is so hypocritical with the Rose thing, so he wanted it off his plate. I think, and I hate to do this because I love the sport, as you know, I think baseball is completely wrong.
He couldn't be more right. He couldn't be more right. The level of hypocrisy on the part of Major League Baseball is so flaming right now, it's hard to put into words. So you're Pete Rose and you have received a lifetime ban. It's something that you accepted in 1989 from then Commissioner Bart Giamatti. We got all of that. We understand. You have an abundance of people out there who have been incredibly unforgiving. Baseball writers, former players, etc. But here's my thing. If you were so appalled and you wanted him to be devoid of any kind of recognition whatsoever, how come that didn't apply when you were able to profit off of him? By having him participate in various MLB activities when you wanted to bring attention. When he was on the field and that whole Jim Gray fiasco went about, Pete Rose was on the field because MasterCard, a huge sponsor for the sport, had thrown an event and you wanted Pete Rose to be a part of it in order to celebrate the game. When you think about him and his name and his image and his likeness, the Hall of Fame uses that and they charging people $20 or more a pop to come into Cooperstown. And you got his stuff all over the place, whether it's his bats, his hats, his gloves, whatever, a ball, paraphernalia, his uniform, etc. You've been able to profit off of this man. But somehow, some way in the United States of America, where we forgive murderers, where we forgive rapists, where we forgive domestic abusers, where we forgive everybody, we had to hold strong on Pete Rose because he gambled on the sport to win, by the way, as a manager. You had nothing on him as a player, but tried to get the world to forget about him as a player until you recognize you could profit off of him. Is that baseball? I will say this much, it is what it has been. I happen to personally like Rob Manfred. I like some of the changes he's instituted in the sport of baseball. I think some of the changes he's instituted has invited athleticism into the sport, which is going to serve to elevate the demographic portion of the sport. You're going to see more blacks in the sport. Obviously, you got enough foreign players in the sport. I think that's going to serve to benefit the sport exponentially, no doubt about that. I'm a fan of Rob Manfred in that regard. I'm a fan of the challenges that he's made to the players. I'm a fan of the fact that he's tried to get the players to stop being the last ones to the party when it comes to transitioning and making changes to adapt to modern times. I appreciate all of that. But this right here, you know what we're hearing right now? The change in his level of thinking ain't because of Pete Rose dying, because like Mad Dog Russo said, Joe Jackson died in the 50s. And you didn't take him off the ineligibility list. And Pete Rose died September 30th, 2024. That's 8 months ago. What took you so long? And oh, by the way, now we got the Hall of Fame talking about they're going to put a committee together to decide whether or not to vote Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame. But that's not going to take place until 2027. What the hell is the delay for? He's dead. What are you waiting for? Could it be for it to die down so you don't have to put a committee together at all? So we could just whistle into the wind and just forget about this? It's amazing to me how unforgiving the sport is when there's so many things the sport has done over the years that shouldn't be forgiven. Don't get me started with the hypocrisy that's been exercised against Barry Bonds, but not necessarily so much against Mark McGwire, who actually was back in baseball and working as a coach even after he was revealed to have taken steroids. Sammy Sosa, and the sport has been very, very good to me, showing up on Capitol Hill, needing an interpreter for the first time when the man speaking English all of those years as a member of the Chicago Cubs. I mean, come on now. Every time we turn around, we see baseball, steroids, amphetamines, and everything in between. Alcohol, domestic violence has occurred by some folks participating in Major League Baseball. And when everybody was being raked through the coals in the NBA and the NFL, it wasn't such the case in baseball. So many times over the years, America's pastime has gotten a pass. But it shouldn't be on this one. This is wrong. This is wrong, period. I'm not going to applaud Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball over this. This should have been happened. And oh, by the way, he should be inducted into the Hall of Fame immediately. And for those who felt like he should have never been allowed to work in Major League Baseball again, we had commissioners that didn't want black participation in the sport, that did everything they could to keep Jackie Robinsons of the world from integrating the sport of Major League Baseball. They're in the books. They got to get a check from Major League Baseball. Kennesaw Mountain Landis, ever heard of him? Former commissioner? Look it up. And now you know what else we're hearing? That the reason Rob Manfred may have come, we're not sure, but may have come to this decision is because President Trump was pressuring him to do so because he's been wanted Pete Rose taken off of that ineligibility list and ultimately inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So now we're political now. We had a conversation with the president. And now we made this decision. Let's keep our eyes on what President Trump does on behalf of Major League Baseball down the line. Because if it's anything, then that would mean baseball really didn't do this out of the kindness of its heart. They did it because they were expecting a favor in return. That ain't gambling, but it's pretty much in the same family. You feel what I'm saying? What's good for the goose evidently ain't good for the gander.